Hi everybody, this is Justina with JustynaTHandMade, and in today's video I'm gonna show you how to adapt the I'm Not Square pouch pattern to make it out of jelly and clear vinyl. If you already have the pattern for the I'm Not Square pouch, you are good to go. If you don't, you would need to purchase that pattern, because we're going to be using the pattern template included in that pattern. I will drop a link to that pattern in the description below, so you can review the Etsy listing and see if that's something you are interested in. Also, if you are watching this video, you may want to stop by at in my Facebook group. There will be a post about the release of this version of the pouch with a discount code for this pattern, but it's going to be only valid on the day of the premiere of this video. So that said, if you are not yet a subscriber to my channel and you didn't activate the notification bell, please make sure to do so. This way, every time a new video is released, you're gonna get notified and you're gonna have the best chance to purchase any pattern at a discount the day of the release of the video. Like I said, this pouch is made out of jelly vinyl and clear vinyl. You don't need a clear vinyl, obviously. You can make it completely out of the jelly vinyl. If you have different colors, you can mix and match the panels. You can even make two-color panel on the back as well to have a really nice colorful pouch. If you have any questions regarding this video or this pattern, or in general, please leave a comment in the comment section, or you can contact me directly via Facebook group. The link is also below. You can contact me on Instagram, or you can message me on Etsy. And now, if you want to see how this cute jelly and clear vinyl version of the I'm Not Square pouch comes together, please keep watching. To get our project started, we're gonna prep all our pattern pieces and our supplies. So you're gonna use the pattern piece provided in the original I'm Not Square pouch, and you're gonna cut two pieces, one out of your clear vinyl and one of your jelly vinyl, and that's gonna be our front of the pouch. And then you're gonna cut one whole piece using the same pattern piece. You're just gonna fold it at the indicated line and cut the piece on fold. So you want to make sure that you are using this smaller pattern piece to cut your back outer panel. Also, you're gonna need a piece of zipper tape. I'm using zipper tape number 5 and a zipper pull, and I'm gonna be using Gutenberg Mera 70 thread to sew my project. So now that we have everything ready, we're gonna start with prepping our front panel. So you wanna make sure that you have both right side up, and then you're gonna put them right side together along the middle cut or middle seam. Make sure that you're putting those patterns together correctly, so you want to make sure that they align perfectly, and clip them along the long straight edge. And when you have that done, you're gonna take your project to the machine and you're gonna sew along this edge with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm gonna be using 3.5 stitch length on this project because I'm using clear and jelly vinyl. Make sure to back stitch on the beginning and on the end of your seam. Now that you have those two panels sewn together, and you can make sure that they are now the same size as your back panel. Now, because we are using clear vinyl, we don't want to have the seam allowance showing on the see-through portion of your project. So we're gonna now fold our seam allowance behind the jelly vinyl portion of our project, and after you have the project finger pressed, you're gonna take it back to the machine and you're gonna top stitch along the seam on the jelly vinyl part of your project to make sure your seam allowance lies nice and flat on your front panel. Now, after our seam allowance is top stitched, I also added my back tack. If that's something you're planning on doing, you can do it right now. Just keep in mind that we're gonna have a seam allowance on the side, and this part gonna create the base of your pouch, and this is gonna be the top. So you wanna be somewhere in the middle of this space, and you're gonna account the space for your seam allowance on the left side. So now that I have my front panel prepped and ready, I'm gonna sew in my zipper. I have my zipper tape and I'm gonna place it coil side down and center it. It's a little longer, so I have a little space on the end to insert my zipper pull. So center your zipper tape along the top edge. When my unit it's prepped like this, I'm gonna take it to the machine and I'm gonna sew the zipper tape on with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length, and I'm gonna backstitch on the beginning and on the end of my seam. But I'm gonna start my seam when my panel fabric is, not from the beginning or end of the zipper tape. So take it to the machine and sew your zipper on. Now that my zipper tape is sewn in to the front panel, I'm gonna flip it over, finger press it, and take it back to the machine and top stitch on the zipper tape side along my zipper seam with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. This way my zipper tape will lie nicely flat on top of my panel, and also I'm gonna have a nice clean look from the front of my pouch. Now that my zipper is top stitched to the front panel, I'm gonna sew it in onto my back panel. So you want your back panel to be right side up, and then you're gonna place the zipper tape along the top edge of your panel, making sure that the front and the back panels align on the side. And when you have that prepped, take it back to the machine and sew the zipper tape onto your back panel with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Now that the zipper tape is sewn into our back panel, we're gonna repeat what we did with the front. So we're just gonna fold the zipper tape over the top edge of our panel, finger press it, and take it to the machine and top stitch on the zipper tape fabric at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Now that our zipper installation is completed, we're gonna connect our bottoms. You wanna bring both panels right sides together and clip them along the bottom edge. And when you have your project prepped like this, you're gonna take it back to the machine and you're gonna sew along the edge. I'm gonna flip it over for a better visual reference. So you have your zipper on top and it's wrong side out. So when you have the panels prepped and clipped together along the bottom edge, you're gonna take your project to the machine and you're gonna sew along this edge with the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Now that your bottom seam is completed, you want to make sure you're going to put your zipper pull on so you can turn the project right side out. So now that the project is right side out, you can insert your zipper pull on. I like my zipper pull to be on the left when the pouch is closed, so keep the direction in mind. After the zipper pull is on, we're gonna turn it back wrong side out. And now we're gonna connect our side panels. So your project is looking like this right now. So now you wanna connect your middle side seams. So I'm gonna have the seam allowance like again behind my jelly vinyl. So bring the panels together and clip. You just want to make sure that your seam is in the middle of your zipper coils. We're gonna trim the excess of the zipper tape after our seam is completed. And as you can see, my panels are off a little bit. They are not exactly the same size. I'm gonna correct it with the seam allowance of the boxing of the pouch. If that's something that you want to avoid, you can increase the seam allowance while sewing your zipper tape on. So it looks like I'm about 1/8 of an inch off, so you can increase your initial seam of the zipper to 1/4 of an inch, and then you should avoid it. That's my advice. I'm not worried about it too much because I'm just gonna sew my corners at a bigger seam allowance, and I was planning on trimming the seam allowance anyways, so this not gonna ruin my project at all. If you run into this on your project, don't be discouraged, just go on. Now I'm gonna make sure my seam allowance is folded in the same direction, and again align my sides. And when I have my project prep like this, I'm gonna take it back to the machine and I'm gonna sew along those two edges with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length, making sure I'm back stitching on the beginning and on the end of each seam. Now that I have the sides sewn, I'm gonna trim the zipper. I'm gonna actually trim the seam allowance with the zipper, and then I'm gonna make sure to just melt the zipper tape I just cut. I don't want that to unravel. And now we're gonna box our sides. So I wanna make sure that my zipper tape is in a down position. I don't wanna fold the zipper tape up. That may give me a little trouble. So make sure your seam allowance is laying in the position when you are folding, or you are keeping the direction of the zipper, and box your corners. And now that you have all 4 openings clipped, you're gonna take your project to the machine and you're gonna sew along all 4 with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch lengths. Obviously you want a back stitch on the beginning and on the end of the seam. With this bigger seam, we're gonna catch all our little discrepancies. So afterwards we can just come back, trim our seam allowance, and have a nice looking seam allowance inside of our pouch. After you have all your corners sewn, we're gonna trim the seam allowances. And now you can turn your project right side out. And now the clear and jelly vinyl version of the I'm Not Square pouch, it's completed.